The Last Emperor. The true story of Kaiser Wilhelm II. Kaiser Wilhelm II, 1859–1941, was one of the most consequential and enigmatic figures of the early 20th century. His reign directly shaped the path to World War I and the collapse of the German Empire. His story is a complex blend of personal psychology, political miscalculation, and the relentless tide of history. A tortured beginning, 1859–1888. Wilhelm's life was marked by trauma from the very start. A difficult birth. He was born with a withered left arm, likely due to Erb's palsy from a complicated breech delivery. In the 19th century, this was seen as a severe physical defect, especially for a future warrior king. A clash of parents. His father was Crown Prince Friedrich, a liberal Anglophile who admired the British constitutional monarchy. His mother was Victoria, Princess Royal, the eldest daughter of Britain's Queen Victoria. They represented progress and Enlightenment values. A Prussian upbringing. To cure him of his English liberal influences and toughen him up, young Wilhelm was removed from his parents' care and placed under the tutelage of a harsh, ultra-conservative Calvinist tutor, Georg Hinspeter. He was subjected to brutal and often humiliating therapies for his arm, such as being tied to a horse to learn riding. This created a deep resentment for his parents and their values, and he instead idolized his grandfather, Wilhelm II, and his conservative chancellor, Otto von Bismarck, who represented Prussian military autocracy. This childhood forged a man who was insecure and narcissistic. He overcompensated for his physical disability with elaborate military uniforms, aggressive rhetoric, and a need for constant admiration. Impulsive and unstable. He was prone to erratic decisions, bombastic speeches, and emotional outbursts. Deeply anti-British. Despite his blood ties, he developed a jealous rivalry with the British Empire, fueled by a desire to prove German superiority. The dismissal of Bismarck and personal rule, 1888, 1890, 1888, was the year of the three Kaisers. Wilhelm's grandfather, Wilhelm I, died. His father, Friedrich III, succeeded him but died of throat cancer after just 99 days on the throne. At 29, Wilhelm II became emperor. Within 2 years, he clashed with the legendary Iron Chancellor, Otto von Bismarck. Bismarck's foreign policy was a complex web of alliances designed to keep Germany secure and France isolated. Wilhelm found Bismarck's cautious realism stifling and wanted to rule himself. In 1890, he forced the great statesman to resign. This was a catastrophic mistake. Wilhelm abandoned Bismarck's careful balance of power, declaring a new course. Without Bismarck's steady hand, German foreign policy became unpredictable and aggressive, destabilizing Europe. Weltpolitik and the Road to Isolation, 1890–1914. Wilhelm embarked on a policy of Weltpolitik, world politics, demanding Germany's place in the sun as a global colonial power to rival Britain. Key actions that alienated other powers. Naval arms race. Under Admiral Alfred von Tirpitz, Wilhelm embarked on a massive buildup of the German high seas fleet. This was a direct challenge to British naval supremacy, the cornerstone of their empire. It transformed Britain from a potential ally into a determined enemy, pushing them into alliances with France and Russia, the Triple Entente. Antagonistic diplomacy. He meddled constantly in international crises, such as the Moroccan crises, 1905–1911, where he provocatively asserted German interests to humiliate France. Each time, Germany was forced to back down, making the Kaiser look blustering and weak and further solidifying the Entente against him. The Daily Telegraph affair, 1908. In an interview with a British newspaper, he made outrageously offensive comments, alienating the British, the Japanese, and the French. The scandal was so severe it led to a serious constitutional crisis in Germany, revealing his profound lack of judgment and weakening his prestige at home. By 1914, Wilhelm's policies had successfully diplomatically isolated Germany, surrounding it with a coalition of powerful enemies, France, Russia, and Great Britain. The Shadow Emperor, World War I, 1914–1918. Contrary to popular belief, Wilhelm did not actively push for war in July 1914. When the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand triggered the crisis, he was initially hesitant. He famously gave his blank check of support to Austria-Hungary, but then went on his annual Nordic cruise, believing the conflict could be localized. However, once the complex war machinery of alliances was set in motion, he was powerless to stop it. His earlier actions had created the conditions where war was inevitable. During the war, a critical shift occurred. The rise of the military. Real power quickly flowed away from the Kaiser and into the hands of the military high command, first under Erich von Falkenhayn, and then the Duumvirate of Paul von Hindenburg and Erich Ludendorff. A figurehead, Wilhelm was sidelined to a largely ceremonial role. He became the Shadow Emperor, touring the front lines and awarding medals, while Hindenburg and Ludendorff made all critical military and political decisions, effectively establishing a military dictatorship. Abdication and exile, 1918 to 1941. By late 1918, Germany was starving and facing certain defeat. Ludendorff, knowing the army was broken, insisted on an immediate armistice and the creation of a civilian government to shoulder the blame for the surrender. The infamous stab-in-the-back myth was born. As revolution swept German cities in November 1918, the Kaiser's advisors told him his position was untenable. President Woodrow Wilson's armistice terms implied the Allies would not negotiate with the Kaiser. To prevent civil war, Chancellor Prince Max von Baden announced the Kaiser's abdication on November 9th, before Wilhelm had actually agreed to it. Humiliated and desperate, Wilhelm crossed the border into the neutral Netherlands. Queen Wilhelmina granted him asylum. The German government requested his extradition as a war criminal, but the Dutch refused. He spent the rest of his life in exile at Huisdoorn, a small manor house. Life in exile. He settled into a quiet, bitter routine, chopping down trees, an odd obsession, reading and writing extensive self-justifying memoirs. He never accepted responsibility for the war or the collapse of the empire, blaming Jews, socialists, and his enemies for betraying him. He initially harbored hopes of a monarchist restoration, which briefly flickered during the rise of the conservative Hindenburg to the German presidency. He despised Adolf Hitler and the Nazis, viewing them as vulgar upstarts. However, he was pleased when Hitler conquered the Netherlands and France in 1940, seeing it as a form of vengeance. He died of a pulmonary embolism at Huisdoorn in June 1941, with German soldiers guarding his estate. He was buried in a small mausoleum on the grounds with a request that no swastikas be present at his funeral. Summary and legacy. Kaiser Wilhelm II was a tragic and pivotal figure. His personal insecurities, amplified by the immense power of his throne, led him to pursue policies that destabilized Europe. While he did not single-handedly cause World War I, he created the diplomatic conditions that made it possible. His reign demonstrates the danger of combining absolute power with a fragile, impulsive personality. He was a man who longed for greatness but lacked the temperament, wisdom, and stability to achieve it, ultimately becoming the central actor in the destruction of the very empire he sought to glorify.